Decades before 9/11, the United States is attacked by terrorists. American businesses are bombed. Innocent people are slaughtered. Symbols of liberty become targets for destruction. The terrorists are mobile, well-organized, and deadly. As the violence escalates, their victims have but one hope: the FBI.
In the 1970s, cities across the United States became a battleground for vicious Croatian radicals. Their violent agenda targeted their own people living in America. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. Agents all over the country worked to unravel a complex web of extortions, bombings, and assassinations. At stake were the lives of innocent Croatian families trying to build a new life in America.
New York City, 1977. On the morning of June 14th, 3 men approached the Yugoslav diplomatic mission to the United Nations. Outside the mission, a New York City police officer stands guard. Inside, Yugoslav security agents protect the embassy. One of them asks the visitors for identification.
Upstairs, go!
Hearing the shot, police officers rush into the building. Foreign missions are technically outside the NYPD's jurisdiction. The officers are now in Yugoslav territory. As backup arrives, the officers inside the mission try to negotiate with the 3 men, but they have barricaded themselves in an upper office. The intruders warn they have taken a woman hostage. They will kill her if anyone tries to enter. One officer offers himself as a substitute hostage.
Take me for the hostage.
The gunmen refuse. Agents from the FBI's New York field office respond to the scene. According to federal law, the FBI is responsible for investigating all attacks on foreign missions. Special Agent Len Cross.
As I arrived, we had police officers in the park. We had police officers on surrounding buildings with scoped rifles. And then we had the emergency service units making entry into the building. What was going through my mind was, what was happening on the inside.
The suspects appear in an upstairs window, brandishing a Croatian flag. They toss propaganda leaflets into the street. The leaflets call on the United Nations to force communist Yugoslavia to grant Croatia its independence.
What they were trying to do was gain publicity for their cause and showing the oppressive regime that existed in Yugoslavia and how they were oppressing the Croatian people.
A hostage negotiator talks to the suspects for nearly 2 hours. They finally agree to come out, but only if they are taken into custody by U.S. authorities, not Yugoslav officials.
They were just trying to protect themselves from the officials because they knew if they got their hands on them, they'd kill them.
Easy.
And then finally, when they realized it was the New York City police and the FBI on the other side of the door and assured them that no harm would come to them, they surrendered without incident.
Move! Stay right there.
The suspects reveal that they never had a hostage. They were only bluffing to prevent Yugoslav security agents from mounting an armed assault. As the police officers escort the suspects out of the building, mission security confronts them.
Step aside, gentlemen.
They tell the officers to hand over the radicals.
This is Yugoslavian mission. You have no right here. This is territory of Yugoslavia.
Put the guns down. This is New York
The NYPD officers refuse.
prisoners. Step aside.
No.
Lower your
They
weapon.
intend to leave the mission with the prisoners.
We're taking our prisoners out. Lower the guns.
The security agents finally back down. The invasion of a foreign mission on U.S. soil is unprecedented. One of their employees has been seriously wounded. Special Agent Cross now leads the investigation. He searches for a possible motive for the attack. He starts by analyzing the long history of hatred and violence between Yugoslav Serbs and Croatians as they fought over the same Eastern European lands.
The reasons and motives stretched centuries, where Serbians would go into Croatian villages and kill every man, woman, and child, and the Croatians would reciprocate.
1971. The violence spread outside Yugoslavia. Croatian radicals assassinated the Yugoslav ambassador to Sweden. In 1972, they hijacked a Swedish airliner and forced the government to release 7 political prisoners from jail. Later that same year, Croatian terrorists claimed responsibility for planting a bomb on board a Yugoslav airliner. The blast killed 26 innocent people.
I mean, the hatred was so deep and it was hard to fathom. We were dealing also with trying to understand cultural and historical issues. And it was not your simple criminal matter. It was a lot of payback on both sides.
Now, that payback is spread from Europe to the United States. It's a terrifying trend. Cross contacts fellow FBI agents at U.S. embassies around the world. They confirm that there has been a disturbing increase in Croatian attacks on Yugoslav embassies and diplomats worldwide. Special Agent Cross works closely with police and prosecutors, providing background information on the men who attacked the Yugoslav mission. 4 months later, on October 13th, a New York jury finds all 3 men guilty of conspiring to take hostage Yugoslavia's ambassador to the United Nations. The jury also convicts the gunman who wounded the Yugoslav security agent of assault with a deadly weapon. For Agent Cross, the case is officially closed. But everything he has learned tells him that Croatian terrorism in the United States is on the rise and about to explode. 9 months later, in Chicago, Cross's fears become a grim reality. Croatian businessmen begin calling the FBI in a panic. They have each received an anonymous letter written in Serbo-Croatian. The letters demand a large sum of money and threatens horrific consequences if the recipient fails to pay up. Special Agent Bjarne Borison of the FBI's Chicago field office examines the letters.
Yesterday.
Borison speaks fluent Serbo-Croatian and has a background in counterintelligence.
They said, you are not doing your part in our cause to overthrow the communist government. We've assessed your situation and decided that you are capable of paying this amount of money. And they would instruct them to send this money to an address in Paraguay, and if you fail to do that, you'll pay the consequences. It's absolute extortion. That's the way the FBI looked at it, was, yeah, this was an extortion attempt, and they were threatening your well-being if you didn't cooperate.
Agents are unsure whether the culprits are Serb spies or Croatian criminals. But they do know the extortionists have cast a wide net. Nationwide, the FBI collects a total of 52 extortion letters from Croatian businessmen. The letters are nearly identical, but with one key exception. The senders demand a different amount of money from each victim.
Most of the people who received those extortion letters were well-off, or at least comfortable individuals, and had the ability to pay that money that was requested.
In New York City, Special Agent Len Cross heads the investigation into the extortion letters. Searching for leads, he contacts Pero Vučas, a prominent Croatian political writer living in Queens.
He was known to be against violence, and we felt that he might be an individual who could perhaps assist us in terms of identifying who may be responsible for these letters.
Agent Cross asks Vučas if he thinks the extortionists could be fellow Croatians.
He did not feel any good Croatian would have written these letters and made the demands that were made in these letters.
Instead, Vučas blames the Serb government of Yugoslavia.
He told me that it was his belief that these letters were generated by the Yugoslavian intelligence service to try to disrupt the Croatian community.
The majority were peaceful, and they wanted to overthrow the Yugoslav government, but by peaceful means. But there was always those who wanted to use more violent means and would do anything to achieve that goal.
Vučas believes the letters are an attempt by Serbian spies to sabotage Croatian demands for freedom.
I left him my card, told him if he could think of anything else, please just to give me a call, and we would appreciate it.
In Chicago, Agent Borison focuses on the letter's demand to send money to a post office box in the South American country of Paraguay.
The address in Paraguay was of key significance to us because somebody had to collect that money, so they had to zero in on who that might be.
The FBI sends an agent from the U.S. Embassy in Argentina to Paraguay to investigate. The agent observes a man receiving the money. He is later identified as a known Croatian terrorist who in 1972 had shot the Yugoslav ambassador to Sweden. A month later, in New York City, the case takes a dramatic turn. A man calls local news stations claiming 2 bombs had been planted in New York City. One at the United Nations, the other at Grand Central Station. In 1978, the FBI investigates a group of Croatian terrorists who use extortion to fund their cause. In New York, 2 local television stations receive a call from a man who claims 2 bombs have been planted in New York City. One is at the United Nations. Outside a library at the UN compound, a police officer finds a suspicious-looking bag. The officer immediately calls in the NYPD bomb squad. Investigators find a note nearby written in Serbo-Croatian. It demands Croatian independence and says, quote, "This is the beginning. Our decision is kamikaze." Bomb technicians carefully dismantle the device. It's armed with dynamite and a blasting cap. The timer is set to explode within the hour.
It was designed to go off, it's just that it malfunctioned.
At Grand Central Station, police find the second bomb stashed inside a locker. Again, the device is accompanied by a letter demanding Croatian independence. If either of the devices had detonated, the loss of life and property would have been disastrous.
The writing was on the wall. Things are becoming more and more violent, and they were happening more frequently.
The FBI believes it's only a matter of time before someone is killed.
Gentlemen, go ahead and have a seat, get comfortable. So, with the contact
Agents from the New York field office combine forces.
We felt that it would be a good idea to bring all the case agents together on one squad under one supervisor where we could exchange and coordinate our activities.
Special Agent Cross also proposes the coordination of a nationwide effort.
If we did not, my prediction was that all hell was going to break loose.
2 weeks later, in a wealthy suburb of New York, a successful businessman is gunned down outside his own home. His only crime: he's a Croatian immigrant who refused to submit to extortion. The FBI's worst fears have been realized. An extortion target has been murdered, and agents have no viable leads. In Chicago, Special Agent Bjorn Borison becomes concerned that Croatian Americans in his area will also be targeted.
It wasn't an empty threat they made in that extortion letter. They meant it. And we didn't know who they'd come after, so we had to contact all those individuals who'd received those letters to warn them and advise them they could be a possible target. And at the same time, try to identify who's responsible.
The FBI also alerts other law enforcement agencies to watch for anyone purchasing illegal weapons or bomb-making materials. A few days later, the Chicago field office receives a call from the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. A known Croatian radical is trying to buy dynamite.
And they had just got an individual in a sting operation who had purchased 2 cases of dynamite from them. This individual met with the ATF undercover agents thinking he was buying real dynamite, but they actually sold him dummy dynamite.
The buyer's name is Ivo Afinic. He is a high-ranking member of a Croatian independence group called Otpor.
Obviously, they have plans to do a lot more bombings, and that's why they were buying this. The name of the organization is Hrvatski Narodni Otpor, which means Croatian National Resistance, so the word Otpor means resistance.
While the majority of Otpor members are law-abiding citizens, the FBI suspects that there may be a criminal faction operating within the organization intent on extorting and murdering fellow Croatians.
All right, guys, we're gonna pop this door. We're gonna go in. We got some.
Otpor meets at a Croatian social club on the south side of Chicago. In a joint operation, FBI and ATF agents raid the club, searching for bomb-making materials. Investigators find the 2 cases of fake dynamite. But there are no live explosives anywhere in the club. A thorough search fails to turn up enough evidence to press charges against Ivo Afinic. That same day, in a nearby Chicago neighborhood, Daniel Nikolic opens up his shop. Nikolic is one of dozens of Croatian-American businessmen who have received an extortion letter. The cabinet maker refused to be bullied. Chicago police, the Chicago Fire Department, ATF agents, and the FBI investigate.
We did a search of the premises, and we determined that a bomb had been detonated on the roof of the cabinet shop.
Special Agent Borison interviews Daniel Nikolic.
There was no doubt who he thought was responsible, and that was the Otpor leadership, as a result of his failure to pay the extortion letter that he received.
With Nikolic's help, the FBI talks to members of the Croatian community. Their top priority is to find a confidential informant inside Otpor, familiar with the organization's violent activities.
Leaders in the Croatian Cultural Center.
The key to almost any investigation is you have to develop someone inside the organization who's willing to cooperate with you.
But the Chicago FBI has trouble finding anyone who will talk about Otpor.
About the Serbian activity.
To get someone that was actually inside the group is very hard, because it wasn't that big a group who was actually responsible for the violence. It was a small group, and it's very difficult to find someone inside that small group who's going to cooperate with you.
While agents try to recruit an informant in Chicago, Pasadena, California becomes the group's next target. On the morning of November 22nd, a Croatian businessman steps outside his home and into the gun sights of an assassin. The victim had received an extortion letter 5 months earlier, but he refused to support the Otpor cause. Local police and the FBI investigate, but they find little evidence. In San Francisco, home to a large Croatian-American population, agents mount an all-out effort to penetrate Otpor before they kill again. The FBI assigns Special Agent Bob Gorth, who speaks fluent Serbo-Croatian, to the full-time task of recruiting a confidential informant.
The FBI was having a problem with penetrating the Croatian community for the same reason that you have trouble in any ethnic terrorist field. The criminal act is a result of their nationalism. Whether or not they're involved, they will stand together as a community against law enforcement.
With a background in Yugoslavian counterintelligence, Special Agent Gorth understands the bitter conflict between the Croatians and the Serbs.
Not as often as I...
Yugoslavia was an artificial country. It was born after World War I. The Croatians fundamentally were constantly fighting to get out from under what they considered Serb domination.
His understanding of the culture helps him enter San Francisco's Croatian community.
I was very un-bureau in a way. No suit and tie, no anything. A lot of times conversations were over a beer, over a bar table. We had to find a way to break down the wall and to convince someone on the inside who had information that what they were doing was morally wrong. It had to be a matter of conscience and a matter of actual conversion of thought.
From San Francisco to Chicago to New York, FBI agents compare notes, trying to find an insider who can give them any information on the mysterious, tight-knit terror group. The FBI's lead case agent in New York is Len Cross.
It was about 6 o'clock at night, and we were going over our leads and trying to get an idea, what do we need to do next? And I received a phone call.
Agent Cross, it's for you. He wouldn't say. It sounded urgent.
After 4 months of silence, Pero Vučas, the Croatian activist writer, is desperate to talk to Cross.
You got a what?
And he says, I need to talk to you, and I need to talk to you now. I got a threatening letter, and he says, I'm going to tell you everything. I know who's all responsible.
The call may be the break the FBI needs.
So I says, okay, I'm coming right over. I says, I'll meet you right at your house.
As soon as I can.
All right, this evening, thank you.
Okay, all right. You got a threatening letter?
Other agents from the New York field office accompany Cross to the meeting.
They says, no, you're not going, we're going to go with you, because I mean, this could be a setup. They could be trying to get you.
Nationwide, FBI agents try to infiltrate a deadly terrorist organization that extorts and murders their fellow Croatian immigrants. Pero Vučas, a Croatian political writer, asks Special Agent Len Cross to come to his house. He's finally willing to talk.
He was very concerned, very scared, and he proceeded to show me this letter. It was essentially telling him that if he didn't shut up and didn't get his act together, that something very bad was going to happen to him. He realized at this point that these guys meant business and that he was in their crosshairs, and that his only alternative was to reach out to the FBI, put his trust in them, that they can get the job done.
The writer tells Agent Cross that he believes members of Otpor are behind the letters and the violence.
And he says they're criminals, they're just a bunch of criminals that have infiltrated the Croatian organizations. At that point, he laid it out who all the key players were throughout the country. He couldn't tell us who wrote their letters, but what he did tell us is these are the guys that are running the whole operation.
According to Vučas, Otpor's North American headquarters is in Chicago. Some of the key terrorists live in the Midwestern United States.
It was really good information and definitely kind of was starting to fill in the puzzle.
In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, agents contact a Croatian priest who the FBI learns is influential throughout the Midwestern Croatian community.
Sit down.
Father Bradish is an outspoken opponent of violence. Agents believe he may provide valuable leads. An FBI agent from the Milwaukee field office interviews him at the Catholic elementary school where he works. As they talk, Father Bradish opens his mail. One package contains a book. The agent spots a wire.
He observed batteries, wires, and explosives. The agent, being concerned for the location, that it was in an elementary school with young kids, grabbed the book and he ran outside.
The Milwaukee police sends a bomb technician to disable the device. Tragically, the blasting cap explodes, taking off part of the technician's hand. The FBI issues a warning to the 52 extortion victims that they've identified across the country. Beware of book-sized packages wrapped in brown paper. The next day, in Queens, New York, Pero Vuchas picks up his mail. Inside his post office box, he finds a note telling him that he has a package. The postal worker can't find it.
No, please. Would you look one more time? It has to be here.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
The package has been stored on a shelf near the counter.
There you go. Which package right there?
It looks like a book.
I don't want it. I'll come back for it later.
Vuchas contacts Special Agent Len Cross.
I received a call telling me I've got a bomb. It's at the post office. He says, you want me to go get it? I says, no, leave it there. I says, we're going to get the bomb squad. We'll take it from there.
At the FBI lab, a bomb expert studies the package. It is nearly identical to a device sent to Milwaukee.
This book bomb was very similar in construction. The cutout looked the same. The firing system was the same. It was the same type of dynamite, same type of blasting cap.
The postmarks on the packaging reveal that both bombs were mailed from Akron, Ohio, on the same day. Agents alert Ohio authorities of the likelihood that the bomb maker lives in their area. In Cleveland, police search the home of Pavel Chotoras. The Croatian radical is their chief suspect in the bombing of a Croatian bookstore 5 days earlier.
Can you spread it out a little bit?
Special Agent Bjarne Borison.
During the search, they found a book that was hollowed out and was obviously a book bomb.
The bomb is a prototype. Once again, there are no live explosives on the premises. Without further evidence, no arrest can be made. Investigators try to link the prototype to the book bombs mailed to Milwaukee and Queens.
Every bomb maker has his own unique style. And of course, one of the reasons for doing that is safety. You want to do it the same way every time, because if you've changed anything, it's very dangerous to wire a book bomb.
In the lab, Special Agent Denny Klein compares all three devices. Each book is hollowed out to the same depth. The glue and solder used to construct the devices each have the same chemical composition. Even minute tool marks on the bomb's wiring match.
The belief of the laboratory was that this was a prototype that was used to make the two earlier bombs.
There is no way to know how many more bombs have been constructed from the prototype. March 17th, 1980. New Yorkers and tourists pack Fifth Avenue to watch the city's annual St. Patrick's Day parade. 10:55 a.m. A bomb explodes at the 30th floor office of a Yugoslav bank. FBI agents respond, including Special Agent Ken Maxwell.
We were doing interviews of the employees of the bank, the employees of the neighboring offices, the maintenance people in the building, delivery people, anybody who would even come remotely close to 505th Avenue that day.
The only significant evidence agents find is another note in which Oatpork claims responsibility. The terrorists issue a chilling threat. The bomb attacks will continue until Croatia is free. On June 3rd, 1980, the terrorists target one of America's most cherished symbols of freedom, the Statue of Liberty. On June 3rd, 1980, Croatian terrorists target one of America's most cherished symbols of freedom, the Statue of Liberty. Special Agent Ken Maxwell helps investigate the bombing.
Someone had gotten into what they call the museum story room at the base of the statue that tells you the whole history of how the statue was built and all of the wonderful history in the pictures, and plus the souvenir shop. All of that had been blown to smithereens. A considerable amount of damage had been done throughout the base of the statue.
A number of violent groups claim responsibility for the bombing, including the Palestinian Liberation Organization, anti-Castro Cubans, and even neo-Nazis.
Multiple claims of credit back in the early 80s was not an unusual phenomenon.
Investigators painstakingly search for pieces of the bomb, expecting that the evidence will help them determine which group is responsible.
Hey guys, looks like I got a wire over here.
We spent all night there, sifting through all of the rubble and debris, and came up with quite a few components. The components of the improvised explosive device were strikingly similar to previous Croatian-related bombings.
What began as an attempt to extort dozens of Croatian Americans has escalated into a campaign of violence.
The Statue of Liberty was the greatest symbol of attraction for potential terrorists because of what it stood for. In their mind, the United States was not listening to their cause. So let's bring the cause to their attention and let's show them, the United States, that this is a real issue to us, and almost trying to extort the United States of America to help them achieve independence.
But the terrorists' logic is flawed. The attack only fuels authorities to intensify their investigation.
Bombing our Statue of Liberty, it's a slap in the face. So what we did, we started to focus our resources, our investigative attention on several individuals who we strongly suspected were involved in this kind of activity.
In New York, the FBI sets up intensive surveillance on several key terror suspects. In San Francisco, FBI Special Agent Bob Gorth continues his efforts to recruit an informant inside the terrorist ring.
But I spent over a year doing nothing but contacting Croatians. It's very important to understand the people, to speak their language, to understand where they come from, even to a degree to empathize with them, so that you can talk to them in terms that they understand and appreciate. I interviewed over 300, I think, of all stripes and persuasions and types, trying to find the right source. I finally found a man who indicated he'd like to talk again. Hadn't told me anything, but he'd like to talk again. After talking to him, I don't know how many times, we began to build a rapport. And finally he said, I think I'll help.
Finding a source of information inside Otpor is a major break for the FBI. After thoroughly debriefing the informant in San Francisco, the FBI sends him to New York to gather intelligence on the most recent Croatian bombings.
He originally had lived in New York, and he was well acquainted with the people.
The informant renews old friendships with Croatian radicals.
He would have been killed if members of Otpor Command had found out that he was the man.
Despite the risk, he probes for details about their plans.
If you could obtain inside information on what's going on in a criminal enterprise, it means a tremendous amount in terms of achieving success in an investigation.
The informant learns that the group intends to assassinate an outspoken critic of Otpor.
Take care of it.
The target is Pero Vučas, the prominent Croatian political writer.
They were going to kill him with a rifle as he was walking his daughter, his 6-year-old daughter, to school in the morning. If they missed, they could hit his 6-year-old daughter. They had no concern for her, and most of the agents and the detectives working this case, they all had kids. So, you know, they're thinking in terms of a father. How could they do such a thing like this?
According to the informant, the ruthless plot is already in motion. Special Agent Ken Maxwell watches as 2 suspected terrorists park a van near the target's home.
What was very unusual is that they get out of the front of the van and went in the back of the van. removed one of the rear windows and substituted one of the windows with a cardboard panel. And although we could not see totally inside the van, we did know they weren't having a bagel and coffee in the back of that van. They were looking to assassinate him.
In New York, agents believe Croatian assassins intend to shoot Pero Vučas as he walks his 6-year-old daughter to school. Vučas has been working with the FBI to identify the terrorists. Special Agent Len Cross warns Vučas to stay inside his apartment.
If they had made an attempt to get out of the car and proceed to his residence, then we saw what would appear to be a weapon. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. They were going to be taken down, period.
Fortunately, Vučas and his daughter remain hidden, forcing the snipers to abandon their deadly plot. The FBI decides to set up electronic surveillance on a man they believe to be the mastermind behind the East Coast bombings, the president of Otpor, Stjepan Sačić.
He was directing the operations here in New York, and naturally would be the place to put the wiretap, especially in view of the fact that the individuals came to him, and that's where they had their meetings.
Special Agent Bjarne Borason.
It's very difficult to go into a building and place a wire without leaving any trace that you were there. And the FBI is quite good at that.
What are they talking about?
Very nearby, we set up a listening post, and we'd have at least one translator there at all times.
Their job is to translate Croatian to English,
Pieces are the bomb making.
as well as identify each voice on the tape. They must also decipher any code words used by the terrorists.
They won't come out and say words like dynamite. They may say things or pieces.
The drop-off, which is the device delivery, and the package is the bomb.
It took a while for us to get a grasp as to what are they talking about and get the significance of the phraseology they used.
The conspirators meet often, usually in the rec room in Sačić's basement. Jako Dreven, one of the men who tried to assassinate Pero Vučas, is Sačić's lieutenant. Translators work day and night, analyzing their conversations.
The wiretap would run 24 hours a day, and we had to constantly monitor the conversations because they're talking about bombing, assassinating people.
Agents are still trying to pin down specifics, places, dates, the identities of the co-conspirators.
It was all part of the puzzle that had all the pieces be pulled together in order to form enough evidence to start the prosecution.
Under federal racketeering laws, the FBI needs hard evidence of a conspiracy to take down the entire organization. Special Agent Ken Maxwell.
One particular night, their shaking of the pinball machine shook loose a wire that was used in the installation of the microphone.
Stop.
It looked like a plain wire. It didn't look like it had a head that a normal microphone would have. So if you saw it, you might even know what it is.
On the other end, the translators can hear the conspirators talking about the wire.
What they were saying was, "What is that?" And one of them realized rather quickly, because he had done all of the electrical work for the house, I didn't put that wire there.
They knew there was something there that didn't belong there. Now, the next question is, do they know what it is?
The conspirators begin following the wire.
And they traced that wire out of the basement to the power source out on the street and ripped the wire out.
For the FBI, the tap is critical.
To to the great credit of our special operations folks, they reinstalled, and they reinstalled within 24 hours. I think the bad guys thought they had won in that instance, not realizing our persistence. And this time, we avoided the pinball machine.
Agents hear Stepan Sacic and Jako Drevin planning an upcoming operation.
They were talking about, let's get ready, I want you to do this, I want you to smash this. And we knew they were getting ready to bomb something.
Agents learn that Otpor intends to bomb a Yugoslav dance studio, scheduled to host a gala attended by the Yugoslav ambassador to the United Nations, Special Agent Len Cross.
They were going to have over 300 people there. At this point, this really raised our concerns because now they're going after groups and not concerned about who gets hurt.
Agents tail Drevin. He drives to Bridgeport, Connecticut, where he visits the home of a man named Vuka Julic.
When he went into the residence, he went in empty-handed. When he came out, he had a good-sized brown bag, and there seemed to be some bulky stuff inside the bag.
Agents follow Drevin back to New York City, where he picks up another Otpor foot soldier. The men drive on toward their target.
And they circled a block in Manhattan and kept circling it and circling it.
Agents watch as Drevin cases the building. He leaves the suspicious bag behind in the van.
It was decided that if they removed the bag, then we were going to arrest them. Certainly we were not going to take the chance of a potential bombing in Midtown Manhattan.
As the suspect returns to the van, the agents watch his every move, ready to take the terrorists down. In New York, agents tail two suspected Croatian terrorists. An FBI surveillance operation has revealed that a radical faction of Otpor is planning to place a bomb at a reception for 300 people. The terrorists case the building and then leave the area. Agents suspect that they have a bomb in their van. The FBI cannot risk a terror attack on hundreds of innocent people. Agents obtain search warrants to raid the homes of Stepan Sacic and Jako Drevin.
FBI! Up against the wall! Hold it! Hold it right there! Get out! Hold it right there! Hold it right there! Hold it right there! We have warrant for your arrest. What is this? I don't understand. Just hold it right there. Hold it.
In Drevin's home, Special Agent Ken Maxwell finds a familiar-looking bag in a closet.
When I looked into the shopping bag, I saw a woman's pocketbook that was open. And inside the pocketbook were sticks of dynamite wrapped up in tape, a timing device, an alarm clock, an electric blasting cap, and wire. It's not every day that you find a bomb at your feet.
Authorities take Drevin into custody. Across town, Special Agent Len Cross and his team search the home of Stepan Sacic, the president of Otpor.
One of my team members was going through a pile of paint drop cloths, and he found the scoped rifle and he found the ammunition.
Investigators suspect Sacic's co-conspirators used the rifle weeks earlier in a plot to murder political writer and FBI cooperator Pero Vučas. Agents arrest Sacic for conspiracy under RICO, the federal racketeering statute.
He was advised of his rights, and he refused. He wasn't being very cooperative.
No, I don't think so.
4 days later, FBI agents and police raid the Bridgeport, Connecticut home of Vuka Julic.
Towards the window. What is all about? Face the window.
Julic provided Drevin with the bomb earmarked for the dance studio.
We have a warrant to search the premises.
A bomb tech, as he moved some clothes, observed there on the floor in a bag considerable amount of dynamite, and sitting on top of the dynamite were electric blasting caps, live electric blasting caps.
Agents arrest Vuka Yulich.
Don't you worry about it. We'll take care of it from here.
Special Agent Cross, you ever heard of him?
They call Special Agent Cross in New York to inform him they have found one of Otpur's primary bomb makers.
Special Agent Cross.
Cross again questions Stepan Sacic, asking him if he knows a man by the name of Vuka Yulich.
You know a guy from Bridgeport?
He says, yeah, a little I do. I says, you got some problems. And we've just arrested him. I says, he had a large quantity of explosives and caps and weapons in his house.
Sacic still refuses to talk. New York investigators call in Special Agent Bob Gorth from San Francisco to question Yulich. The former Otpur member turned confidential informant accompanies him.
Let's hope.
Late in the afternoon, with the moral support of the Croatian cooperator, Yulich finally begins to open up.
He wanted the feeling that a fellow Croatian believed in him, trusted him, and he wouldn't be entirely alone. And when he finally got the courage up, he said, yeah, I want to talk about it. And of course, that was the linchpin of the whole case.
Vuka Yulich tells investigators how other Otpur members convinced him to kill a Croatian community leader in California 2 years earlier.
After drinking all one evening and into the morning, he decided he'd strike a blow for Croatian freedom and go kill this enemy of the people. So he did. And later on, he realized that what he'd done was not advancing the Croatian cause, but really was harming it. He was one of the few people that I firmly believe regretted what he did.
Yulich agrees to testify against Sacic, Dreven, and the other Croatian terrorists.
When I killed.
This is the key testimony prosecutors need to take down the entire terrorist ring.
His cooperation in this case was instrumental in breaking the back of an organized crime organization wherein in 4 cities we literally took out the godfathers of 4 families.
The RICO statute, originally enacted to stop organized crime, is used for the first time to fight terrorism. Within 2 years, 11 members of the Otpur organization are convicted and sentenced to up to 40 years in prison.
If you're going to achieve any kind of success in terrorism, you have to be able to bring to the playing field the right kind of players, the right kind of knowledge, and the right kind of resource, if you even hope to put a dent into it.
The Rambo approach is not going to win over terrorists. Terrorists are motivated by the extreme sense of nationalism. And if you're going to deal with them, you've got to get into their hearts and minds. Otherwise, you may stop them on a particular incident, but you haven't changed their minds. If you don't change their minds, they'll do it again.
For the FBI and law enforcement nationwide, dismantling Otpur was a vital achievement. Terrorists operating inside U.S. borders were stopped dead in their tracks. In Detroit, a brutal gang strikes again and again, targeting residents in terrifying home invasions. They attack quickly, take what they want, and leave no evidence behind. As the assaults continue, the FBI and local police join forces to stop the terror. In the end, authorities come face to face with a vicious gang that refuses to be taken alive.
In the 1990s, neighborhoods in Detroit were terrorized by a gang of robbers. Impersonating police officers, they invaded over 100 homes, robbing, raping, and torturing their victims. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The extraordinary number and sheer magnitude of these home invasions stunned authorities. As residents feared for their lives, agents teamed up with local police to take down this sadistic gang.
Detroit, Michigan, February 1994. In some neighborhoods, narcotics trafficking is a way of life, and drug busts by the local police are routine. This raid is anything but routine. The men ask the resident where he keeps his drugs and money. He refuses to talk, confident that police officers would never hurt him.
You're the police, you can't shoot me. Hurry up, yo! Hurry up! Wait, I got it. Yo, hurry up, let's go! Hurry up! We got it! Hurry up! We got it! Come on, man, let's go!
The man calls police and reports that officers broke into his home, assaulted him, then stole money and jewelry. The patrolmen know the resident is a local narcotics dealer. They also know there were no drug raids scheduled for that address. Could these home invaders be rogue cops? The incident is part of a wave of excessively violent home invasions plaguing Detroit.
Give it up! I don't want to have to hurt you, old woman!
Averaging more than one a week, they spread fear throughout the city.
Give it up!
The invaders leave no useful evidence behind. In June 1994, the newly formed Safe Streets Violent Crimes Task Force dedicates itself to putting an end to the terror. It is comprised of Detroit police detectives and FBI agents, including Special Agent Michael Kosanovich.
We really were determined to solve these violent home invasions. Initially, we were aware of approximately 50 home invasion robberies from the beginning of '94 up through June of '94. They were fairly violent. They involved shootings, sexual assaults.
Investigators begin by searching for connections between the numerous invasions. Detroit police officer Tom Dunai.
We took a look at all the police reports that were taken over the previous 2 or 3 months. We analyzed them, we broke them down into the MOs and exactly what these perpetrators were doing on each one.
Investigators identify a recurring method used in the attacks, according to Special Agent Bob Pertuso.
The gang used a dynamic approach that law enforcement officers use when they execute a search warrant or make an arrest to gain quick entry into a home and then take control of the occupants. They all wore masks and they were all armed with semi-automatic pistols, assault rifles, MAC-10s.
Based on this consistent MO, the task force suspects that a single group is committing most of the invasions.
We were able to narrow this down to, yes, it was a gang of about anywhere from 4 to 8. The descriptions all fit the same. Their MO was the same. Everything was the same on almost every home invasion.
To gather more first-hand information, investigators re-interview the victims of the home invasions.
Stan, you had some excitement here the other day.
They learn that most of them are involved in narcotics trafficking. FBI Special Agent Michael Kosanovich is not surprised that dealers are reluctant to talk.
They don't want to reveal the fact that they were selling drugs or conducting illegal activity out of that residence.
Detective Sergeant Tom Barry tells the dealers that the task force has no interest in busting them for narcotics.
People are getting raped, they're violent. We don't care about the drugs. We need your cooperation. About 90% of the time, the drug guy come on board, he'd come on our team and say, hey, I deal my drugs, I know that's not right, I'll tell you what I know about this case.
Holds a gun at me and I'm like, he's a cop, you know.
Investigators discover that some home invasion victims are not drug dealers.
These sometimes elderly people, they're panicking, they're crying, they're begging. Got guns to the side of their head. Where's the dope? Where's the money? Where's the dope? Where's the money? There isn't any money. There isn't any dope.
The gang has simply hit the wrong house. Realizing that there are no drugs or money, they turn violent.
Did they ask you?
We heard all the horrible stories of the torture, 80-year-old women, pistol whipped, hit with the butts of shotguns.
FBI Special Agent Martin Vandervliet.
What really bothered us the most were the sexual assaults of the females who were present on 6 of the home invasions. One in particular, a mother and her 15-year-old daughter were raped simultaneously by 2 members of the home invasion group.
Just the look in their eyes, the fear, their anger that was very controlled, but yet was all inside their body. You could just feel it with their body emotions.
I'm so sorry.
The little girl, without saying it, just through her eyes, she said, please help us. Please help us. And that hit me. And that look in that girl's eyes will stay with me for the rest of my life. We told her that we would do anything in our power to bring these guys to justice. What I had to do is build their confidence up, leave phone calls every day to let them know that I'm still thinking about them, we didn't forget about anything, and we're on your side and you're well protected and you have nothing to worry about. The fright that was in them will always be there, but they knew they had the full cooperation of the Violent Crime Task Force on their side.
Skinny.
Concerned that the home invasions are executed like a police raid, the task force confronts the possibility the gang is made up of law enforcement personnel.
We checked to see any recent officers that have been fired from the job, maybe were accused of illegal use of narcotics, because this was all revolved around narcotics, you know. So you would check, you know, any ex-narcotic officers, and there was nothing.
Investigators quickly recognize that the escalating level of violence in these cases indicates that law enforcement is probably not involved.
In our experience, police officers aren't going to go that extra step and fire shots into a house or go rape a victim, things of that nature. It's usually go in and rob, go in and knock the door down, get their whatever they need and run out. So in the beginning, we had to look at that, but then we had to eliminate that as the more and more as the home invasions were occurring. It got more and more violent. We realized that it wasn't police officers or ex-police officers.
The biggest problem with these subjects acting as police when they committed these home invasions was that they jeopardized legitimate police officers. If a victim has been robbed before by this gang, and then the police show up another time to execute a search warrant legitimately, they may start shooting or try to harm the police officers.
So what we need to do is start going through.
Now that investigators have a clearer idea of what they are dealing with, they begin their efforts to identify the members of the gang.
We looked at a number of people who had committed these offenses in the past, or robbery-type offenses of narcotics dealers. We contacted various informants and asked them to try and determine the identities of these individuals. However, none of the informants that we had talked to had any specific information regarding the people who were committing these offenses.
A couple of hours ago.
Over the next month, the home invasions continue, but the task force makes little progress.
Every home invasion in the city of Detroit where people went in posing as officers, we, the Violent Crime Task Force, would respond to it. So we got first-hand information, try to get a feel, are these our guys, are these not our guys, why are they or why are they not?
Investigators carefully process each scene, but can find no evidence.
Everything we did, we weren't getting lucky. We needed a break.
July 26, 1994. Nearly 2 months after the investigation began, Detroit police respond to a call about shots fired. They find a barely conscious man with multiple gunshot wounds. He has a gun, police jacket, bulletproof vest, and a ski mask. The clothing matches descriptions of home invaders given by prior victims. Police call for an ambulance. Officers alert the task force. This could be the break they need.
Here's a guy, he's got a gun on him, he's got a police vest on. And my only hope at the time was, please don't die. Please don't die.
Agents rush to the hospital, hoping the man pulls through. In Detroit, a joint FBI and police task force tackles an epidemic of violent home invasions perpetrated by an elusive gang who uses police-style tactics. Authorities get a break when they find and arrest a critically wounded man who they believe is part of the ring. FBI agents go to the hospital to question the suspect. Fingerprint identification reveals that his name is Dante Garrison. FBI Special Agent Martin Vandervliet.
He was in pretty bad shape at the time, having been shot 3 times in the arm, the leg, and stomach. He said he was aware of some robberies which had occurred, but he didn't want to go into specifics at that time.
Special Agent Michael Kosanovich remains hopeful.
We were encouraged by the situation, by our analysis of his emotional status, and the fact that we felt he's probably at some point going to cooperate if we can work this right, if we can talk to him and reason with him.
At Detroit Police Headquarters, the task force discusses strategies for persuading Garrison to cooperate. When the suspect's name comes up, Detroit officer Al Page recognizes it. He says he knows his family and had even once held Garrison when he was a baby. To Detective Sergeant Tom Berry, this is an extraordinary stroke of luck.
Now, what are the odds of that? So not only did he get shot and didn't die, we got one of our officers that knows him. This couldn't be any better.
Investigators return to the hospital, and Officer Page exploits his relationship with the suspect's family, hoping to cajole Garrison into cooperating. The ploy works. Garrison agrees to talk in exchange for immunity from prosecution. He admits that he is in fact a member of the home invasion gang and explains that his shooting was the result of an invasion that went terribly wrong.
But one of the occupants of the residence had seen them, said something, and they had fled. They believed that they could come back and successfully commit the home invasion the next night. However, the occupants of that residence were ready and waiting for them.
Garrison was hit 5 times. The gang fled, leaving the wounded Garrison to fend for himself. Special Agent Bob Pertuso.
And that was the difference between these criminals and law enforcement. A law enforcement officer would not leave a fellow officer shot in some backyard.
Knowing Garrison is in poor physical shape, the task force keeps the interview short. They need to keep him healthy.
He was eventually moved out of the hospital and allowed to recuperate at home. Once he became capable of moving around without any assistance, it was decided that we should take him to an off-site location to have him fully debriefed.
The FBI secretly moves Garrison to a safe house outside of Detroit. Investigators inform him of the potential consequences of cooperating with the task force, according to Detroit police officer Tom Dunai.
We let him know that there is a real risk of him losing his life if these guys ever found out that he's talking with authorities about what has occurred. And he wanted protection to make sure nothing would happen to him. And naturally, we gave that protection to him and let him know his name wouldn't be brought up until the day of court.
The way it worked was...
During intensive interviews, Garrison reveals that the gang has several more members than previously suspected.
As it turned out, it wasn't the same group of individuals who were committing these home invasions every time. It might be from 3 to 10 members. And it really depended on who was available when the call went out, who could respond to commit that home invasion that evening. If they were available, they would go. And if they needed money, they would go. If they didn't need money, maybe they might stay home that night.
He's like...
Garrison divulges that 2 career criminals control the gang. Obie Carter and Andre Woods.
Obie and Andre Woods directed and determined which targets would be hit and which individuals would go on specific home invasions. Once a residence was targeted for a home invasion, Obie Carter would page all the gang members that were going to be involved that night. A few of the members would go out and conduct some surveillance on that location. They would try and identify residents, how many, ages. They would return back to the gang, debrief everyone, and then meet again later that night to actually conduct the home invasion.
Garrison reveals that Andre Woods actually stages mock-up raids for training purposes.
Andre Woods had taken the gang members to vacant houses to practice police-style raids. So that they would be familiar with techniques as far as how to make entry into the residence. They would enter just as the police would enter to secure it.
Once the residents are neutralized, the gang interrogates the victims.
You make them pay.
According to Garrison, Woods is extremely violent. He rapes some of his victims and tortures drug dealers when they won't talk.
A lot of times, if the victims would not tell them where the money or the drugs were, they would physically beat them or shoot them until they were willing to provide that information.
Garrison describes one home invasion in which the gang tortured an elderly drug dealer.
They put the guns to him. Where's the dope? Where's the money? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. They shot him in the leg. And he's in agonizing pain, and they're just hammering him again. And they didn't want to kill him. They wanted him to tell them where the drugs and the money was. Shot him again in the leg and said, "Hey, MFer, where's the drugs? We know you got the drugs. We know it's here. Where's it at? Give us, or you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die." And they shot him again. They told him where it was at. Got their money, got their drugs, and they're on their way.
Once a home invasion was complete, they would return to the predetermined location. The money would be divided evenly among the members. Any valuables that someone was able to pick up, it was theirs to keep.
Gang member and drug dealer Chris Allen would handle the stolen narcotics.
Oh, this is prime weed.
It was Chris Allen's responsibility to take those drugs out on the street, sell them, get the money for those drugs, and divide it evenly among the members.
It is also Allen who would suggest who to target for their home invasions.
Allen provided a lot of intelligence to the gang members as far as who would be good people to rob. Based on his knowledge of their narcotics dealing, he knew that they either would have drugs or money present when the gang went in.
Agents are impressed by Garrison's detailed recollection of past crimes.
We knew that this was the jewel. He was the break that we needed to make a significant impact on all these home invasion robberies.
Although Garrison's cooperation is critical to the investigation, it is unlikely that his testimony would stand up in court.
It would just be his word against theirs, and that would not be sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these individuals were guilty of these crimes. We needed admissions from these people, or we needed to catch them in the act of committing a home invasion to be certain that they would be locked up.
Authorities must hit the streets and find a way to take down this violent gang. Detroit police and the FBI work to shut down a dangerous home invasion gang. They get a major break when a gang member is found shot and begins cooperating with the investigation.
Those are all the names I know.
You know where they hang out? What neighborhoods they live in?
Nah, man, they wasn't like my boy.
A joint FBI police task force begins using the informant's information to identify more gang members, according to Special Agent Martin Vandervliet.
A lot of them had criminal histories that matched up with what was occurring. We felt they were likely involved in this based on that. And we went out and did physical surveillance of their residences and could see that they were associating with other members of the group.
Although investigators have received detailed information about the gang's infrastructure from their cooperating witness, the task force needs more evidence to build their case. Authorities show photo lineups of the suspects to the gang's victims, hoping they can identify their attackers.
Take your time.
Detective Sergeant Tom Berry.
The bad thing that we ran into is the victims could not identify them. They were in masks, everything went by in a flash, they put them down on the floor. They could not identify them.
Another set.
The inability of witnesses to pick out their attackers hurts the case.
Take your time.
Special Agent Michael Kusanovich.
No. We don't have enough information to conduct search warrants, to make any arrests. All we have is one individual who's providing information. What we're now looking for is additional fresh information to allow us to go further in the investigation.
The task force asks a federal judge for permission to use wiretaps. If they can prove that there is an ongoing pattern of felonies by the gang, they can take down the entire organization on federal racketeering charges.
And apparently he's also one who has trained this gang.
A few days later, in the early morning hours of September 4th, 1994, police respond to a report of shots fired at an illegal after-hours gambling house. It is owned by Andre Woods, one of the gang's leaders. They interview witnesses and piece together what happened. At 4:30 in the morning, Andre Woods got into an argument with a few of the gamblers.
It got out of hand, he didn't like, they disrespected him. Gunned him down, cold blood. Just wiped out, 4 human lives in a second. He just kind of walked out, that's just the way he was. Got in his Mercedes-Benz and took off.
The task force provides Detroit Homicide with information on Woods and his car. Homicide detectives use the information to alert law enforcement nationwide in an all-out effort to find the fugitive.
Obviously, this caused us to try and speed up our efforts to obtain these wiretaps because we had demonstrated to us the propensity for extreme violence. If Woods was willing to commit a quadruple homicide, we felt that they wouldn't be afraid to commit homicides if necessary in the commission of the home invasions.
5 days after the quadruple homicide, a judge grants the task force permission to monitor the pagers of several of the gang members. They begin collecting phone numbers and discover a consistent pattern of calls between them. It shows further evidence of the gang's organization. A week later, the unimaginable happens. Fugitive Andre Woods strolls into Detroit Police Headquarters.
Ray walked in and said, "Hey, I hear you guys are looking for me."
Police believe Woods turned himself in because the manhunt was getting too hot. He thought it would be easier to fight the charges in court. FBI Special Agent Bob Pertuso is glad to have Woods off the streets.
Because he was so violent. He was an enforcer for the gang, and if Woods was still out, there was a great potential for more people to get hurt.
A week after Andre Woods surrenders, the task force uses the evidence from the pagers to get its first telephone wiretap on the remaining gang leader, O.B. Carter.
We were hoping to be able to identify past home invasions, proceeds of those robberies, and most of all, identify future home invasions so that we could prevent them or catch these individuals in the act.
The task force also places Carter under surveillance by a Detroit police crew that includes Officer Steve Miller.
The guy was really surveillance conscious, so it was a pretty hard target to follow, but we were able to follow him.
The information gathered through surveillance, combined with the evidence from the wiretap, gives investigators further insight into the gang's activities.
We were able to start to watch their moves and start to anticipate as opposed to react. Anticipate where they were going to strike and which members were going to be involved in the next home invasion.
Monitoring phone conversations, they learned to recognize gang members' voices and code words. The gang calls their home invasions licks. Detroit police officer Tom Dunai.
After we kind of knew that they had just got done with a lick, they all get on the phone and start talking about it and laughing about it and telling how much money they got out of a certain house or how many guns they got out of a certain house. Then they would talk about narcotics that they got out of the house.
From these intercepted details of the crimes, investigators are able to connect the gang to specific home invasions.
They weren't very descriptive, but they were descriptive enough where we knew what they were talking about, what they got out of the house. So we were able to match that up with the reports of the victims stating to us what was taken from the house at the time of the home invasion.
But it is still not enough.
We didn't know specifically which individuals in that group had committed the home invasions. We still needed more information, and we really wanted to catch them in the act of committing a home invasion.
One night, a surveillance officer is watching a home where gang members are meeting. Suddenly, an unmarked Detroit police car pulls up. Before surveillance can radio a warning, 4 plainclothes officers jump out and head in the direction of the gang house. Dispatch tells surveillance that the 4 are working on another case, looking for a possible fugitive at the house next door. The officer is worried that the violent gang members don't know it. A Detroit plainclothes arrest team approaches a house, unaware that a vicious gang, armed with automatic weapons, is in the house next door.
Yo, fellas, cops! Get ready.
An officer assigned to surveil the gang watches anxiously, not knowing if the gang will think the officers are coming for them and open fire. After a few tense moments, the officer is relieved to see no indication of a gang response.
Go ahead, play cards, man. Go ahead, man. Take your time.
Later, the joint FBI police task force investigating the gang monitors a wiretap on a gang leader's home. Detroit Police Detective Sergeant Tom Berry learns the gang did in fact know the arrest team was outside.
Apparently they were getting ready to do a home invasion, and a police car pulled up. Home invaders don't know why these cops are out there. They thought they were coming after them. On the wire, what they said is that those cops would have came in here, we would have killed them, just killed them all. That made the hair on our arms stand up.
Detroit police officer Tom Dunai is even more determined to get the gang off the streets as soon as possible.
We started getting enough evidence on these guys via the wiretap that we decided that before somebody actually gets killed here, we need to do something quickly.
But investigators need direct evidence of the gang committing a crime to ensure convictions under federal racketeering statutes.
Taking care of the warrants?
Special Agent Bob Pertuso.
Okay, great.
They would be in possession of their weapons, they'd be wearing their bulletproof vests, they'd be in possession of the goods that they stole.
To protect innocent bystanders, investigators decide to arrest the gang after they leave a home invasion. Special Agent Martin Vandervliet.
We know they're going to be...
We did not want to try and arrest them while they were in the house committing a home invasion and possibly risk a hostage situation.
But taking down this brutal gang will be extremely dangerous.
They had attempted to kill people, rob people, sexually assaulted women. Very violent. In fact, we had developed that information that they had planned to shoot it out with the police when confronted. Very difficult situation.
We know they're going to have vests on. We know they're going to have automatic weapons. There was no doubt in our minds that these people, they weren't going to just throw up their hands and give up. They're going to shoot it out.
You going with me out here for a minute?
Because of the large number of individuals who were involved, as well as the weapons that they were carrying, they were heavily armed with AK-47s, MAC-10s, Uzis, all the dangerous weapons out there in the street. We believed that we needed to use a SWAT team to arrest these individuals.
Agents meet with the SWAT commander who lays out the plan. The tactical squad responsible for making the arrests will hide inside an ambulance. With its emergency lights activated, the ambulance will approach the home invader's vehicle from behind as if it were passing. Investigators believe that since the gang will have just committed a home invasion, they will try to remain inconspicuous and pull to the side of the road.
And we're going to ram them with the ambulance. The 20 SWAT guys, all dressed in SWAT gear with bulletproof vests, are going to get out and get a half moon around them, so when they start to get out of the car or the van, we got them contained. We didn't want to get into a chase. That was one of our things we didn't want. And that's why we decided to ram them, disable their vehicle. We didn't want to chase.
The final component of the plan requires taking down the rest of the organization.
We knew from past experience that only certain members of that group would be involved. It wouldn't be the whole group. So we had other police persons ready to make arrests at other locations for whoever was not present during that home invasion, as well as to execute 6 search warrants. We had hundreds of agents and police officers involved in our plans for the takedown of this group.
For weeks, the task force works around the clock, monitoring wiretaps, looking for the right opportunity to spring their trap. Then, on November 9th, they hear gang members planning their next home invasion.
When we intercepted conversations about a plan to do it in 2 days, we were at a great tactical advantage. We had our federal search warrant signed, we had the assignments to conduct the searches, and of course the tactical people were actually going to handle the arrest.
Unfortunately, gang members don't mention where the home invasion will be.
We don't know where yet.
The next day, surveillance watches 2 gang members drive through a neighborhood as though scouting for a potential target. The task force now believes they know approximately where the home invaders will strike. Police headquarters, November 11th. With the home invasion only hours away,
Deadly serious.
the task force goes over the plan with team leaders one final time.
Their intent
To underscore the danger the officers face, they play a tape recording of the gang's threat to kill police.
We played that tape for the people who were going to take these people down later on. This is the real deal. We're not playing with these people. These people aren't playing with you. They have no hesitation of killing a police officer. And you can just see the officers just intently staring. You know what I'm saying? This is real. These guys are going to kill us.
At this point, we had been investigating this group for several months, and it was a relatively long-term investigation. And I think most of us on the task force wanted to conclude it, wanted to get them arrested. So we were pretty excited. I think the adrenaline level was pretty high, and we really were expecting that this was going to be the conclusion. One way or another, we were going to get these people locked up that evening.
SWAT gives Officer Steve Miller and the rest of the surveillance teams armor-piercing ammunition for their handguns in case the takedown becomes a gunfight.
We knew these guys wore the same kind of armor we wore, you know, exact same stuff in there, and we knew that they were shooting armor-piercing rounds out of their weapons, so, you know, we had to try to at least be on level par with them.
That evening, surveillance observes the home invaders traveling in 2 cars.
They drive to the area they drove the day before. Everybody's tightening up. They drive by the house and they leave. Well, they don't do the robbery. So we're thinking, what the heck's going on?
FBI Special Agent Martin Vandervliet follows the gang from a distance.
We didn't want to get too close because we didn't want to risk these individuals seeing police in the area and possibly aborting their raid.
The home invaders enter a dark alley and suddenly cut their headlights. They disappear into the darkness, making it impossible to tell whether they parked or continued through the alley.
We're not panicking, but where the heck are they at? Where the heck are they at?
Police cannot move in for a closer look without potentially blowing their cover. If the home invaders get away, they will be free to commit another heinous crime. The FBI and Detroit police tail a gang of violent home invaders, hoping to catch them in the act. Authorities are anxious to bring closure to a 6-month investigation.
Here we go. I'll be cool. Yeah, just lay back here. Lay back here. Just be cool.
But when the home invaders cut their headlights, police lose them. Minutes later at the operations center, Detroit Detective Sergeant Tom Berry learns from 911 that the gang has struck again.
Home invasion just happened. 6 guys in masks dressed as police officers. They robbed the wrong house, got nothing out of it. We got 2 victims that are both almost 70 years old. Can't identify.
Since the home invaders did not steal anything, investigators decide not to make any arrests. There's simply no evidence to tie the gang to the crime.
We can't prove our case, so we sit and we wait.
Agents and officers scour the area looking for the home invaders. A Detroit police surveillance officer doubles back to the gang's meeting place, thinking they will return there after the invasion. When he arrives, he sees them coming out of the house, dressed in their raid clothes and getting into a van. It appears that the gang is heading out for another robbery. When gang members are dropped off at a house, Miller is right behind them.
I ducked into a nice little parking space where I could see the front of the house and I could see the van. I adjust my mirrors, you know, and get in my surveillance mode.
Finally, authorities are in position to actually see the home invaders commit a crime.
So the game plan was, they do the robbery, we can't stop it. If we go in, you risk hostages. We don't want hostages. We want nobody to get hurt.
Suddenly, Officer Miller notices the home invader's van creeping up behind him.
My heart starts pounding, you know, I'm like, this guy saw me. I got my weapon in my hand, you know, and just in case anything happens, you know, I gotta be ready. He just cruised by me.
The van pulls up to the house.
These guys came running out, just all kind of stuff in their hands, and they all jumped into the van.
With a confirmed invasion, the task force puts their arrest plan into motion.
Now we're ready to go. Now we're going to take them down. We turn it over to the SWAT team.
An ambulance loaded with SWAT personnel approaches the gang's van and attempts to disable the vehicle by ramming it. But at the last second, the van speeds up, and the ambulance cannot make a strong hit. The van, which has more horsepower, easily gets away from the SWAT team. FBI Special Agent Martin Vandervliet.
We obviously had a major problem. We had 6 highly armed individuals in a van, and we had to stop them.
Surveillance teams begin pursuing the van, knowing the chase will likely end in a gun battle. FBI Special Agent Bob Pertuso.
Whenever you have armed robbers running from the police, wearing bulletproof vests, armed with automatic weapons, once they broke through the attempts by the police to stop them, there was going to be a confrontation, absolutely.
Officer Miller and the other pursuit vehicles continue to chase the van through the streets of Detroit. Suddenly, the van's rear doors open and the gang begins shooting at law enforcement. A SWAT sniper inside one of the chase cars returns fire. At police headquarters, Officer Tom Dunai continues to monitor the chase.
It was amazing because of what had happened, how controlled the officers were in the street. There wasn't any panic, but people were screaming shots are being fired. We even heard gunfire over the radio. That's how strong it was. And in my heart, I was scared for the officers at that point.
Just stay with them.
The chase continues for several miles. Then, inexplicably, the van stops.
4 guys bail out the van. They're firing at me, and I jump out my car, and I fire one shot. I get one shot off with my 9mm, and it jammed. Natural instinct was just, these guys aren't getting away. Let me chase these guys.
SWAT officers order the remaining 2 home invaders to exit the van. But the van takes off, and the chase continues, leaving Miller alone to pursue the heavily armed suspects.
It was like I could feel the bullet going by. To this day, I can't explain to you why I didn't get shot. I say, okay, police, we got you surrounded, come out.
Miller thought other officers were following behind him. He suddenly realizes he's all alone.
And it's like a ghost town. I mean, nobody there.
Even worse, he does not know where his attacker has gone. The FBI and Detroit police engage in a running gun battle with a violent home invasion gang. Officer Steve Miller narrowly escapes an ambush. When backup arrives, Miller begins searching for his attacker.
We start going up eastbound on Pasadena, just checking. Sure enough, get about 5 houses up, and this guy is laying face down. So I'm like, okay, get up, get up. And, he wasn't moving, kind of lifeless, so I reached around the field, to see if I could get a pulse from him.
He's dead. He's dead.
He's later identified as Obie Carter, the gang's leader. The subsequent autopsy concludes that Officer Miller's first shot, an armor-piercing round, punctured Carter's bulletproof vest and fatally wounded him. Miles away, the police chase comes to an abrupt end when the gang's van breaks down. The 2 remaining home invaders jump out of the van. One surrenders, but the other will not go down without a fight. FBI agents pursue the fleeing gunman. Searching down a dark alley, Special Agent Bob Pertuso sees a dark shape and carefully approaches.
The getaway driver was lying on the ground. He had been shot a number of times.
The agents call for an ambulance.
Down. Need an ambulance.
The getaway driver is taken to a hospital and against all odds survives. Following a series of fierce gun battles, the task force assesses the casualties.
Okay.
Hundreds of shots were fired. Incredibly, no one on the arrest team was hit.
In their 70s.
Our plan worked.
Unknown or injured.
Did not anticipate the high-speed chase and the violent confrontation, but it happened. It was dealt with effectively.
Okay.
But only 3 of the 6 gang members involved in the chase have been apprehended. Detroit police officer Tom Dunai tries to locate them.
Detective Barry here.
What I had done was call local hospitals to find out if anybody was admitted with a gunshot wound. And we called around a few hospitals. We had a hit at one hospital, and they says, oh yeah, somebody just came in with multiple gunshot wounds.
At the hospital, Dunai confirms the gunshot victim is one of the fugitives. As the search for the remaining 2 gang members continues, FBI agents, the FBI SWAT team, and local police serve search warrants on 6 of the gang members' houses. They find critical evidence, according to FBI Special Agent Martin Vandervliet.
Well, we found a lot of evidence that had been taken from robberies, including specific items of clothing, jewelry, and then we also recovered a great amount of weapons. A lot of the houses would have 3 to 5 guns in them, as well as ammunition, vests, pry bars, masks, and other things.
At Detroit Police Headquarters, Detective Sergeant Tom Barry questions the captured members of the home invasion gang. He lets them know they are facing long prison terms and that those who cooperate first may get reduced sentences.
Probably 95% of them told us exactly what happened. That's how we were able to identify the rest of the gang, the rest of the peripheral players.
Over the following months, the task force systematically arrests gang members. In the end, a total of 29 are convicted and sentenced on federal or state charges in the biggest home invasion prosecution to date.
This particular task force, it was the first major task force between the FBI and the Detroit Police Department. We wanted to do a good job for those victims. We made a difference. We really made a difference to the city of Detroit. We did make it a safer place.
Well, it just goes to show you that when law enforcement agencies can work together smoothly with the right people, anything can be accomplished.
Thanks to the collaborative efforts of the Detroit Police Department and the FBI, the violent home invaders gang is dismantled forever. A series of bombings rock cities from New York to Miami. Embassies are attacked. Businesses are destroyed. Cuban Americans are gunned down by assassins. Deep within the U.S.-Cuban exile community, a mysterious group emerges to take credit for the violence. A terrorist group known as Omega 7.
In the late 1970s, the FBI had a working knowledge of anti-Castro terrorists operating in the United States. But then a new group appeared, more violent and aggressive than their predecessors. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. All agents had to go on was a series of chilling phone calls, a mysterious voice, and the threat of more violence. FBI field officers from New York to Miami coordinated their efforts, determined to catch the vicious killers.
New York City, The morning of June 6, 1976, uptown Manhattan. A massive bomb detonates at the Cuban mission to the United Nations. New York police and the FBI rush to investigate the explosion.
I could actually hear the bombs go off from my apartment.
Special Agent Larry Wack lives 3 blocks from the mission. He's on the scene in minutes.
The devastation was unbelievable. My first reaction was, there's no way anybody walked away from this thing. And it turned out nobody got injured or hurt.
Special Agent Wack examines the entrance of the mission. From the blast pattern, it looks like the bomb exploded directly in front of the door. He notices a security camera mounted overhead.
Assuming that the guy walks up and sets it down at the door, he had to be on video.
Agent Wack asks a Cuban diplomat for permission to look at the videotape.
Videotape from your camera? Told us that we couldn't view it right away and that they would take a look at it and get back to me. Got a call the next day from one of the diplomatic personnel up there who said that there's nothing on the tape. And I said, oh, okay. This is the game we're going to play.
It appears that the Cuban officials are keeping the videotaped evidence for their own intelligence, even if it cripples an FBI investigation.
It would be nice in a perfect world if they said, look, here's a copy of the tape and you do what you need to do with it. And, you know, we're going to keep the original, but it doesn't happen.
A news station provides the FBI with a tape-recorded phone call from a man who claims he belongs to an anti-Castro organization that bombed the Cuban mission, Omega 7.
We are Omega 7. Thank you.
The FBI has never heard of Omega 7. For Cubans fleeing Fidel Castro's brutal regime, northern New Jersey has become a safe haven. It is home to nearly 100,000 Cuban immigrants.
We're trying to get information.
FBI agents talk with people in the community in an effort to identify members of Omega 7.
Getting information from the Cuban exile community was one of the most difficult things we ever ran across. Even if they knew who the guys were, to them they're heroes.
Appreciate it.
For the FBI, it's another dead end. Over the next 2 years, Omega 7 strikes targets in New York City again and again. They bomb the Cuban mission twice. Another bomb detonates at Lincoln Center, where an orchestra from Cuba had been performing. In each instance, a representative of Omega 7 calls local news stations to claim responsibility. The terrorist group is on a rampage, but the FBI has few leads.
We were coming up with no witnesses. We were coming up with pieces of battery and whatever that wasn't going to pin down anybody.
For now, investigators' only solid lead is a mysterious voice claiming responsibility for the violence. To FBI Special Agent Tom Menapace, all the tapes sound like the same person.
There were slight variations in tone, but if you listen to them all at the same time, you really picked up kind of a common thread.
The caller would identify himself always as a member of Omega 7. Most people pronounced it Omega. There was a distinct Omega with this guy. It was calm, collected. Here's what we did. Here's why we did it.
FBI agents in New York and Miami have interviewed dozens of suspected anti-Castro terrorists, but none of the agents recognize this particular voice.
The voice was driving us crazy. Nobody's got this voice. We were taking copies of the tapes and playing them with prominent members of the community. And we were basically trying to get a name for that caller.
But even those deeply involved in the Cuban community are unable to ID the caller.
If there's not that immediate recognition, then a lot of times you get into an area where people are speculating. It's like, gee, it sounds like so-and-so, and you kind of know right there that, you know, they're stretching.
Yeah, they're locals. Thanks very much for your help.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Investigators also play the voice for informants they know have connections to various anti-Castro organizations. No one has any idea who the voice belongs to.
Don't recognize anyone.
And still, the bombings continue. Northern New Jersey, March 1979. Omega-7 bombs the offices of a Cuban businessman in northern New Jersey. His name is Eulalio Negrin, an activist who helps reunite Cuban refugees with their families in the United States. At the scene, the FBI finds no witnesses and little evidence. Investigators believe the bomb is only a warning.
If they meant to kill Negrin with a bomb, I would think that they would have used a more powerful device and known that he was there and put it on his car or something like that.
That fall, more than 3 years after the original Omega-7 attack, another bomb explodes at the Cuban mission to the UN. The same mysterious voice calls news stations and takes credit on behalf of Omega-7. A month later, the terrorist group abruptly changes its pattern. Eulalio Negrin and his 12-year-old son leave their home. In New Jersey, 2 masked men attack a businessman for trying to free political prisoners in Cuba. The victim is Eulalio Negrin, a Cuban-American activist. Paramedics try to save his life, but he's lost a lot of blood. In the end, Negrin pays the ultimate price. Tragically, Negrin's 12-year-old son witnessed his father's horrible killing. FBI Special Agent Tom Menapace must interview the grief-stricken boy.
He was in shock. Basically saw his father get killed. And that's pretty horrible.
Special Agent Larry Wack is stunned by the brutality of the murder.
There's a lot of unwritten rules out there in the game of cops and robbers and bad guys. Shooting a man in front of his son is not part of the rules. And I found that to be tremendously cold and calculating, and began to realize that we were dealing with some pretty callous fellas.
Union City Police recover empty brass cartridges believed to be from the shooter's weapon. The FBI and police question area residents.
Could you tell how many people were inside?
You do a real intense neighborhood investigation, essentially tracing the path in which the car was seen fleeing.
Investigators finally find a witness who can describe the color, make, and model of the gunman's vehicle. At the Newark FBI office, Special Agent Menapace listens to a news tape in which a voice proudly claims credit for Negrin's murder.
The stakes are getting higher. It's gone from being, a bomb in a doorway, endangering people, to actually taking a life.
A prominent man has been assassinated in front of his own home. But all Agent Menapace has to go on is a vague description of the killer's car.
How many of them are registered in Union City or Hudson County? or Elizabeth. Who were they registered to? Are any of those registrations people who we have as suspects in the case?
In 1979, there was no computerized record system for vehicles by make and model. Investigators failed to find the killer's car. At the autopsy, a pathologist recovers several bullets from the murdered man's body. The bullets could be crucial evidence, but only if investigators can find the murder weapon. A month later, December 1979, the Cuban mission is bombed again. The Soviet mission is also attacked for providing aid to Cuba. The blast seriously injures an NYPD officer. Yet again, the mysterious voice of Omega-7 takes credit for both bombings. Miami, January 1980. A bomb partially destroys a small cigar factory.
Now, how long?
This is the third bombing in Miami in a year.
3 years now?
To the FBI, the pattern is familiar.
How about your local?
Special Agent George Kaczynski is a bomb tech with the FBI's Miami field office.
Some of them I know.
There was a tremendous amount of damage done, not just to the building, but to the cigars that were being manufactured there, which are manufactured by hand.
As in New York, a representative of Omega-7 calls a local news station to take credit for the bombings. FBI Special Agent Tom Walzer believes the terrorists are trying to intimidate the shop owner, who advocates better relations with Cuba.
The goal was ultimately to get to the attention of the Cuban community, but it was also to send a message to the individuals and businesses that had dialogue with the Castro regime, as well as to send a message to the island of Cuba itself.
In Little Havana, a predominantly Cuban neighborhood in Miami, FBI agents and police continue to dig for clues.
We have good access to Cuban leaders, to individuals in the community, as well as established sources that cooperate with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, because the Miami PD has informants, Metro-Dade has them, FDLE has them, ATF has them.
Despite their wealth of informants, the FBI comes up with nothing solid. Agents compare tape recordings of the Miami bombings with those from New York. They agree that it's the same person. As in New York, investigators play a tape for members of Miami's Cuban community. No one seems to recognize it. Manhattan, March 25th, 1980. FBI agents respond to a report that a bomb has been placed on a limousine belonging to the Cuban ambassador to the United Nations. Through interviews, investigators piece together what happened. When the chauffeur got the limo ready to take the ambassador to an appointment, he bumped the car in front of him. He got out to inspect the damage and found a shoebox wrapped in gray duct tape. The chauffeur was suspicious. He was aware that the mission had been bombed repeatedly. He put the box in a garbage can away from the mission and hurried inside to call police. When the NYPD bomb squad arrives, the chauffeur shows them where he put the suspicious device. But the garbage can is now empty. The officers realize the Department of Sanitation has made its regularly scheduled pickup. By now, the truck and the bomb could be anywhere in the city. In New York, a chauffeur finds a possible bomb underneath the limousine of the Cuban ambassador to the United Nations. places the suspicious device in a trash can and calls the NYPD bomb squad. By the time they arrive, the device has been picked up by a city garbage truck. The bomb squad catches up to the truck. They question the driver, according to FBI Special Agent Tom Menapace.
When they first ask him, you know, did you find something, a mechanical device in the trash? He says no. They're like, it might be a bomb, at which point he's like, it's in the cab.
The driver had spotted a radio receiver inside the box. He was planning to take it home. Inside the box is enough C4 explosive to potentially blow up a building. In the lab, an FBI bomb expert examines the device for fingerprints, hairs, and fibers. He finds nothing. Queens, New York, September 11th, 1980. Omega 7 claims another life. The victim is an attaché of the Cuban mission to the United Nations.
To my knowledge, it was the first assassination of a UN official in the history of the UN on US soil.
A newly formed FBI NYPD task force investigates. It's the first joint terrorism task force in FBI history. In the fall of 1980, the FBI gets a break in the case. A former anti-Castro radical contacts Special Agent Larry Wack. He feels innocent people are dying and decides to cooperate. The informant cannot identify the members of Omega 7, but he has heard a rumor about the group.
He had learned that there had been a significant split in the actual Omega hierarchy, or as he called it, the board.
Anything else?
Agent Wack believes that once the FBI has identified suspects, they can exploit the division by pitting one faction against the other. 3 months after the murder of the Cuban attaché, a bomb explodes in front of the Cuban consulate in Montreal. At the New York FBI office, the task force wonders if Omega 7 members from the United States are responsible. According to the INS, shortly after the bomb exploded, a car entering the United States refused to stop for inspection. Border guards were unable to get the license plate number. The car was going too fast. But they did get a description of the vehicle. A short time later, a New York state trooper stopped a car matching that description. The two men inside the car denied running the border.
A few miles back. Is that you guys? No, sir. We haven't run the border before.
Without a license plate number or other evidence of guilt, the officer was forced to let them go. But before he did, he wrote down the information from their driver's licenses, including their names, Enrique Herbons and Antonio Casaveres. The task force recognizes Herbons' name.
He was known to us as a fanatical, violent exile from Miami. The other gentleman in the car was an unknown entity at that moment, which was interesting to us because the big question was, who is this guy?
According to his driver's license, Casaveres lives in New Jersey. Agent Menapace visits his apartment complex to talk to his neighbors. They tell him Casaveres recently moved to Miami. Menapace plays a tape of the suspect's voice. The neighbors all identify the mysterious man, the voice of Omega 7, as Antonio Casaveres.
These people who knew him as a nice young guy, they were shocked that I'm sitting there playing these credit-taking calls for them, and they're recognizing the voice on the tapes as someone they know.
It's a huge break in the case. The task force immediately gets a subpoena for Casaveri's phone records and begins to analyze who he has been calling.
It's like dropping a pebble in the water. The leads go outward because you see who he calls, and then you see who they called. We start to see heavy calling in times, in dates leading up to incidents, and then on the day of the incident, no calls. And then after the fact, calls.
From the phone records, the FBI identifies 3 other likely members of Omega 7. They analyze the credit card records of all 4 suspects. Among the charges are several automobile rentals.
The car rentals were really one of the biggest things that really became of interest to us.
Agents discover that some of the suspects had rented cars at Newark Airport just before the bombings and could have used them in the crimes. In fact, one man stands out because he had received a parking ticket across the street from the Cuban mission the same day that Omega 7 gunned down the Cuban attaché. His name is Eduardo Mazoras. Miami, September 11th, 1981. A bomb explodes at the Mexican consulate. Omega 7 takes credit. Hours later, a second bomb explodes at the Mexican consulate in Manhattan. Once again, Omega 7 claims credit. Although the explosions are over 1,200 miles apart, Agent Menapace believes it's possible that a single person placed both bombs.
One person had the time to fly from Florida to New Jersey or New York and carry out the bombings.
Agent Menapace rushes to Newark Airport to check the records of rental car agencies.
I just was basically working my way down the line, showing the pictures, asking them questions.
At the very last rental car company, Menapace learns he's on the right track.
The employee looks at the pictures and he says, "You just missed this guy."
Suspect Eduardo Mazoras had just traded in his rental car for a new one. He claimed that the brakes were bad.
I said, "Well, where's that car that he just brought back?" And the guy said, "We haven't touched it yet." I said, "Don't touch it." I said, "He has one of your cars now." The man said, "That's correct."
Agent Menapace knows it's a huge break.
I had the car at the curb that I believe he'd used in the bombings. I had a hard suspect in Omega 7 renting the car just before the bombings in New York and a couple hours after the bombings in Florida.
Agent Menapace asks investigators to meet him at the rental agency.
Rental car place that I responded to.
Time is of the essence. The FBI must stop Omega 7 before the terrorists strike again. Terrorist bombs explode at Mexican consulates in Miami and New York within hours of each other. The FBI believes Omega 7, an elusive group of Cuban radicals, used rental cars to drop off the bombs. Eduardo Mazoras, one of the FBI's prime suspects, has just returned a car at Newark Airport. Special Agent Tom Menapace calls in a canine unit to inspect the vehicle.
The dog alerts on the trunk. The indication being that there was bomb residue in the explosive residue in the trunk of that car.
Investigators know that Mazoras has rented another car. When he returns it, agents are waiting for him.
How you doing, sir?
Good, Horn.
Mazoras is surrounded by FBI agents disguised as customers and rental car employees. But with only circumstantial evidence, they decide to surveil him rather than arrest him.
I immediately recognized him. He looked just like his picture.
Agent Menapace follows the suspect on a shuttle bus to the terminal.
I'm just another traveler waiting for a shuttle bus to go to the terminal, and I'm going to stay with him as closely as I can.
I'd like to buy a one-way ticket to Miami.
Menapace watches as Mazoris gets in line to buy a ticket.
And I'm maybe 3 or 4 feet behind him. I'm as close to him without burning the surveillance as I can.
And what's your name?
He uses a false name. He uses the name A. Medina.
M-E-D-I-N-A.
There's your ticket, sir.
And he buys a ticket to Miami.
As the suspect heads for his gate, Agent Menapace rushes to notify the FBI field office in Miami. In Miami, FBI agents follow the suspect from the airport through the narrow streets of Little Havana and eventually to his house. The Miami field office obtains a warrant to wiretap Mazoris' phone. Special Agent George Kaczynski.
We monitor 24 hours a day, and it's very consuming. It takes up a lot of man hours and a lot of personnel, and obviously they had to be bilingual.
For a year, agents listen to the wiretap, but hear nothing that connects Mazoris with Omega-7.
Everything we were doing was basically looking for a thread, looking for that break, looking for that piece of information that was going to get us headed towards, to go from theory to reality, to get to the actors.
In the 6 years since the original Cuban mission bombing, the anti-Castro terrorist organization Omega-7 has spread fear through more than a dozen bombings and 2 assassinations. The FBI is determined to bring the group to justice. On September 2nd, 1982, at the federal courthouse in New York City, prosecutors subpoena all Omega-7 suspects to appear before a federal grand jury. The FBI needs their statement on record before the statute of limitations runs out. But they have an ulterior motive. Knowing that Omega-7 is split into 2 rival factions, the FBI devises a scheme designed to pit one against the other. Agents arrange for the 2 factions to be in court on the same day. They watch as both groups meet in the hallway.
It was evident to me in the courthouse, when we were all there on the same floor, that there was a lot of friction going on between him and them. There was a lot of animosity there.
Agents want each faction to worry that the other faction may be cooperating against them. It could prompt some of them to make a deal.
They certainly knew what they'd done, and they certainly knew who the members of the group were. And the fact that they're all there and we're all there is telling them, you know, without coming right out and saying it, the game's over. We're closing the circle on you guys.
Most of the suspects assert their Fifth Amendment rights and refuse to testify. Only Eduardo Mazoris takes the stand. He denies everything. But 2 weeks after the grand jury confrontation, Agent Wack returns to his office to find a message from Eduardo Mazoris. Agent Wack returns the call immediately.
He basically said, I want to come up to talk to you. Well, obviously, I'm not about to turn down that offer. So I said, well, when would you like this to be? And he said, well, I'm going to arrive within the next couple of days, and I'll reach out for you then, and we'll arrange to meet.
Fine, I'll be waiting for your call.
Days later, Agent Wack and an NYPD detective meet Eduardo Mazoris at a hotel in Newark.
Heard you got some information for me.
He was very well-groomed, and you'd think you were sitting there talking to, a New York City businessman.
about a deal coming up that was not really a big deal, at least in his eyes.
Eduardo Mazoras tells them that he's come to negotiate with the FBI on behalf of Omega-7's leader, Omar.
Omar's a little concerned that the FBI is getting close. Not just New York, but Miami, Newark, and everybody else that's participating in this thing.
Mazoras says he's willing to tell them all about the crimes committed by the other faction, but only if the FBI promises to leave Omar's faction alone. Agent Wack asks to meet Omar in person. Mazoras tells him it's impossible, but he agrees to meet again the next day. Agents suspect that Omar does not exist. Agent Wack fears that he could be Omega-7's next target.
The first thing we did was look under the car we were driving, because at that juncture, I had no idea what this guy was up to. Possibly this was some sort of a setup. So we checked the car for a bomb pretty close when we left.
The next day, investigators meet with Eduardo Mazoras for a second time. They confront the suspect about Omar's existence.
You're Omar, and you are here to negotiate this whole thing. And he said, yes, you're right.
You're Omar. I have been someone in charge.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
Investigators read him his Miranda rights.
You have the right to talk to an attorney and have him present with you.
Mazoras talks about the criminal activities of his rival faction.
He started identifying the names of the people who put the bombs down. He initially had problems remembering who did what, because they had done so much.
The other group?
Mazoras reveals that the rival faction has more than 1/4 ton of explosives hidden away for future attacks. He tells investigators he's willing to return to Miami to help them find the explosives.
Let's say for a favor.
He wanted to put the opposing faction permanently out of business and was hoping that in his own mysterious way that he could work a relationship with the FBI and the government that I'll help you get rid of them, I won't do this no more, and leave me alone.
Where's it stored?
But in damning his former comrades, Mazoras reveals that he is Omega-7's primary bomb maker.
He is the one who was going to call the shots as to who dies, who gets bombed, how they carry it out. I remember thinking to myself that you're so deep. I don't even know if a deal's going to be possible with anything here.
The FBI now faces a major dilemma. Mazoras is a confessed terrorist. They can either arrest him, or they can take him back to Miami to find the explosives. The decision rises through the ranks of the FBI and the Department of Justice.
It went all the way to the director of the FBI, whether we were going to make this trip to Miami.
The director of the FBI declares that saving lives is paramount. They should send Eduardo Mazoras back to Miami.
We were duty-bound to attempt to find those 600 to 800 pounds of high explosives. Those explosives could have killed a number of innocent people. We had to take a chance. We had to locate those explosives.
Mazoras flies back to Miami. His FBI handlers travel on a separate flight, fearing their presence could jeopardize Mazoras' cover. Mazoras returns to Little Havana with instructions to check in by phone. For 4 days, The informant contacts the FBI to brief agents on his hunt for the explosives.
No.
Then, on the 5th day, Mazoris sounds odd.
And he started wavering about whether he could go on with this whole cooperative thing. I didn't like the tone I heard. I had a bad feeling about the call.
Agent Wack encourages Mazoris to keep trying and to call him back that afternoon.
What's going on?
He begins to wonder if the explosives even exist, or whether the informant is just manipulating the FBI. The FBI NYPD task force is in a difficult situation. They have released an informant, confessed terrorist Eduardo Mazoris, who claims he can lead them to a quarter-ton of explosives. But now agents begin to doubt his intentions. The informant is acting strangely. Special Agent Larry Wack anxiously waits for the informant to call.
Hello?
He said,
Yeah, hi.
I'm sorry, but I'm not coming back. He said, I gotta go, and there was a click on the other end of the phone.
For the task force, it's a worst-case scenario. Special Agent George Kaczynski of the Miami field office now has a terrorist loose in his city.
We were devastated, and then we had to regroup and say, okay, now we have to find him.
Armed with federal warrants, the FBI finds and arrests Mazoris' colleagues.
Up against the wall, hands on your head, right hand down.
They include Antonio Casavetes, suspected of bombing the Cuban mission in New York City.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you.
FBI agents search for Mazoris in Cuban communities in Miami and throughout the United States. FBI Special Agent Tom Walzer.
He was out there as a fugitive on lam. He had been identified, but he was still in charge of the group.
2 weeks later, Special Agent Larry Wack receives an unexpected call.
FBI.
It's Mazoris.
And I was shocked. I was absolutely caught off guard with this phone call. And basically, he starts apologizing for taking off. And I think he felt truly bad that he ran out on us. And when he said he was sorry, I really believe he was.
All right.
But he was also calling because he was trying to find out, what are you guys going to do with these other guys who did the murders and so on and so forth? And where is that going to leave me?
Meet you.
Agent Wack devises a plan to trap the fugitive.
Call me at home.
He tells Mazoris to call him at home.
I gave him my home phone number with instructions that if he had to call again, call collect.
Call me later at my home.
I didn't want to have him in a phone booth calling and all of a sudden run out of quarters and have to hang up.
All right.
Investigators set up a trap and trace on all calls to Agent Wack's home. At the very least, they will find out whether or not Mazoris is still in Miami. Days turn into weeks. There is no word from the fugitive. Then, a month and a half later, Agent Wack receives a call. It's him.
I had to have my wife find a neighbor who was awake at 2 in the morning, use their telephone to call the New York FBI office to make notifications down to Miami and to Miami Telephone Company.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Agent Wack tries to keep Mazoris on the phone long enough to trace the call.
Okay.
Miami FBI agents speed to Little Havana. The call is coming from a payphone.
You're talking about having 3-4 minutes max, so our chances of getting there on time are very, very difficult.
When agents arrive, the fugitive is gone.
Hello?
Over the next 8 months, Eduardo Mazoras calls Agent Wack at home more than a dozen times.
No, go ahead.
Agents continue their attempts to trap him.
On one occasion, we missed him by a matter of minutes, where the phone was just dangling off the receiver, hanging down off in the phone booth.
Agents are frustrated but remain persistent. They map the location of each payphone Mazoras uses. A pattern emerges. Every call has come from Little Havana.
We felt very confident that he was living or working in that area.
You want to concentrate in this area now?
Investigators decide not to show the fugitive's photo around Little Havana.
Great.
They fear he will flee to a different city or a different country.
The last thing we wanted anybody to do was get word to him that we were zeroing in on an area. That's the last thing we wanted to happen, because we didn't want him to leave. If he left, we were in big trouble.
Agents do reach out to their most trusted informants in the area, but nobody has seen Eduardo Mazoras. They suspect the terrorist has gone into hiding. Then, on January 12, 1983, bombs explode at 2 Cuban businesses in Miami. A third bomb is found unexploded. Omar, aka Eduardo Mazoras, takes credit for the attacks.
It was bad enough he's on the run. Now he's bombing again. And our first reaction was, my God, if this guy kills anybody, we'll never live with ourselves.
Larry Wack.
The next night, Agent Wack receives a call. It's Mazoras.
The first thing out of my mouth was, did you do that thing last night? And he said, yeah. Yeah, you know, I just wanted to let you guys know I was still around and let the other side know I was still around and keep the enemy at bay, the enemy being Castro.
Wack tries to keep Mazoras on the phone as long as possible. He's worried by what he hears.
I could tell he got a lot of enjoyment out of doing it. And that made me very nervous, because he was going to get more enjoyment as the days went on if he didn't get caught.
The FBI needs a better plan to trap Mazoras before more innocent people are killed. In Miami, an elusive bomber, Eduardo Mazoras, is on the run. After making a series of traced phone calls, the terrorist eludes the FBI's attempts to catch him. Agents must find a way to speed up their response time. In New York City, on July 20th, 1983, they get that chance. FBI Special Agent Larry Wack gets a call in the early morning hours.
Larry Wack.
It's Mazoras.
Eddie.
Agent Wack's wife notifies the FBI to set the trace in motion. FBI agents in Miami speed toward Little Havana, waiting for word on the caller's exact location.
Well, I think if you're still willing, there's probably a way.
Agent Wack tries to keep the fugitive on the phone as long as possible.
I kept wondering, where is everybody? Where is everybody? Why haven't they gotten him yet? I'm almost running out of things to talk about.
Right. All right.
Mazoras hangs up.
Bye.
The FBI has lost him. Moments later, an agent arrives at the payphone. Mazoras is gone. The agent notices a man resembling Mazoras enter an apartment a block away. FBI Special Agent Tom Walzer.
We were very excited but guarded. And based on the location where he saw this individual go into, we had our hopes up.
The FBI watches the apartment all night, but no one comes out. The next day, agents knock on the landlady's door. They show her a photo of the fugitive and ask if he lives there.
She looked at the photo and said, yes, that's him.
Right over at that house right there. I see. Would you have a few minutes?
Rather than provoke a violent confrontation, the agents asked the landlady to call her tenant outside.
She knocked on the door and asked for him to come to the door in Spanish.
FBI, outside! Outside! Get him out!
He was in complete shock when he saw us, a group of agents armed. He was very surprised, and he was placed under arrest.
I'm in the kitchen, guys.
Inside the apartment, agents find the tools of the terrorists' deadly trade.
He had numerous weapons, silencers, Omega-7 stickers, vests, other paramilitary paraphernalia, bomb components.
Agents also find remote control devices and half-built timers for setting off bombs.
I think that he was preparing to conduct terrorist activities because those timers were at different stages. We felt very gratified that we were able to stop it before anybody got hurt.
The federal jury convicts Eduardo Mazoras of bombings, conspiracy, and the murder of the Cuban mission attaché. He is sentenced to life in prison. Other members of Omega-7, already incarcerated, plead guilty to conspiracy to murder a foreign official and conspiracy to bomb property of a foreign government. They are sentenced to 10 years in prison.
And I think it sent a message to the exile community that, look, we understand you're anti-Castro and you hate communism as much as most of us, but I got bad news for you, pal. You're not going to bring your methods to our streets.
The successful conclusion of the Omega-7 case in the summer of 1983 does send a message. It brings an end to anti-Castro terrorism within the United States.